programming world, we have our hard skills. That is, as we just seen, how to architect the system so that we can change it easily. It's, knowing our Clojure, knowing our Docker, knowing our Kubernetes. Those are all like the hard things that in the end, that's usually what we're paid for. In the end, we're paid that like some system runs and does its work. On the other hand, we have soft skills, which I would like to describe as being sort of basically anything else. It's, our ability to learn, our ability to communicate, our ability to give a presentation in front of you, our opportunity, our capability to mentor people. And so these are two sides of a coin, and I would like to see a show of hands here. And there's no middle ground. I'm just going to ask you to, for devs, like not for leaders, not for manager, what do you think is more important? Do you think like hard skills are more important, or do you think these soft skills, these people social skills are more important? So who here thinks hard skills are more important? That is about, well, 10 people. And who here thinks that the soft skills are more important? That adds up, so that's about the other 90 people. And I am on the latter side, so I think the soft skills are actually more important. And I mean, I know you've all been a bit biased because, the talk is called Functioning Among Humans. But, let me tell you why. I mean, lots of you had the same opinion that I did, but let me tell you still why I think that is how it is. So this is what I think of when I think of like a hard program. And I think of a hard program, think about someone that has really, really good technical skills, is the best at something, but it's very, very poor social and people skills. I think of a sea lion that, that just screams at me and tries to bite me. It's this person that, you're in a meeting and you're like, oh, I have this idea, and it's like, that's stupid. Like, what the hell? What were you thinking? We would never do it like this. This would just fail. The person that always like just puts you down. And I don't know about you, but I have a concrete person in my head when I think about this person that puts me down so much. And they're actually very dangerous, because one thing that happens with these type of people is, they will do all these things and they're really good at them, but they're really, shit at communicating them or sharing them or teaching them. So you will build a huge knowledge cell. They will just be there like, oh, I do all of this, la 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 la. And then you have a bus number, bus factor, truck factor, whatever you want to call it, of 1. Because like that person leaves, that person is hit by a truck, or a person goes into vacation, you lose everything. Nobody can work with it. It's a disaster. And it's like very much an anti-pattern. And that's usually why then companies are like, oh, we have to keep this person, this person is very important. No, it's not. Like, they're very bad at their job. If they would be good at their job, they would be sharing that knowledge so that everyone could handle that. That's a person who's good at their job, not that person. So I think that you can't really see it. This is like a vial that has poison. So I think these people are actually poison for the team, because I think they actually decrease the productivity of the whole team instead of increasing it. So why is that? Studies have shown that you can work at about 20% of your productivity and still not be fired in lots of companies. And now you got to be very, very careful with these, because what does productivity mean for developers? And there's no good answer to that. But I still believe it to be true. So if you're demotivated because you have maybe such a person around you like putting you down, then you will work like that. And then even if that person is a famous 10x engineer that doesn't exist, at least not in that way, if everyone else just works at 20% of the capability or 50%, you will still be on the net negative. You will still be better off firing that person if you can't change their ways. And that is something that I think not a lot of people really, really realize, but it just takes one person, especially in a leadership position, to just destroy a whole culture, make everyone leave. We're not even talking about, or we can talk about like retention at this point, or even hiring. So I talk a lot about like how I think that this person, like the high hard skills, low soft skills, why this is bad. So what do I think about the other way? The high soft or social people skills and the low hard skills. I think of them as being like a general asset to the team. Like early on, they might not know Clojure or Luminous or whatever yet, but I can trust them to learn, and I can trust them to, contribute in any way that they want. They will maybe not help right, but they will ask the right questions. Do you know how important it is to ask the right questions? That is amazing, Like Ramon pointed that a bit out in this talk, like, oh, let's find out, what do we do here? And that's just so helpful. They can maybe have an eye for process, help you run meetings, and then grow into that junior, mid-level, senior-level developer role very, very quickly. I've seen that lots of times. I've seen it happen so good and so well. The other way around, from the sea lion to like a programmer I would want to work with, I've rarely seen that. Like, when I once gave this talk at a local user group, like somebody came up to me and was like, hey, Toby, I used to be the sea lion. I changed, and it's still very hard. Sometimes, I gotta keep my urges intact, but like I know what you're saying. But so it's possible, definitely, but I haven't seen it too many times. So you might be asking now, like, okay, we're mostly devs. We're not like leaders or managers. So how does this apply to us? How is this important? And I just got to tell you that, you are also leaders in your own little circles. Like, you can pioneer changes if you're in the right organization. And also, when I want to change something, even if I'm like the leader of like a 15-person team, I will not always just, like call a meeting and be like, okay, this is how we're going to do it now. That's not me, Well, I will, let's say, I see that, we don't get enough pull request reviews, and the reviews aren't nice enough. What I will first do, I will start with myself. I mean, if hopefully my behavior is already in order, but if not, I will make extra sure that I review enough pull requests, that my pull request reviews are extra nice, and I will try to enforce the positive behavior that I want to see. I will be like, hey, thank you for reviewing so many pull requests today, really good, and like you were really helpful and constructive in your pull request reviews. I'll try to do all that, and then sometimes I never need to, officially address the problem, because the problem sometimes just goes away when sort of pioneer the right way that's supposed to be done. And the flip side of that, though, is that if you want to change something, you gotta hold yourself to a higher standard than about anyone else. If you are the one that always complains that meetings start late, you better not be late to the meeting, not even a minute, because then you're a big hypocrite. So it's very tough, but it's very, very effective. So this talk is titled Functioning Among Humans. My name is Toby. You can find me on the internet as @pracktop. I also tweeted out the slides so that you can see all the bunny pictures that are yet to come in full color. I'm from Berlin. As said before, I'm more a Ruby and Elixir person. I run the Ruby user group in Berlin. I maintain SimpleCoff in Ruby. I maintain and created benchee, which is like an Elixir benchmarking library, and like I do lots of stuff. And for work, I started freelancing, and my first day in freelancing is on Monday. So you all please wish me good luck. So, but the real title of this talk is everything I want everyone who works in groups to know. That fits into 30 minutes. So it's a tough ask. So the structure of this talk basically is like a little mixtape. So it's sort of my best of like people skills and social skills that I listened to ever since high school, and I will sort of show you my favorite tracks or like my favorite part of a track. And my idea with this is not that you then know everything, but that you can take it and be like, oh, this was interesting. I want to look into that direction. That really interested me. But I'm also trying to give you real actionable advice, because all of these are things that I use in my everyday life and that you can apply at work like already tomorrow. But yeah, I had to cut lots of stuff. I focused on stuff that I think is even for like normal devs is important, so I cut lots of stuff like situational leadership or group readiness or even other concepts. I'm sorry, these other concepts broke my heart, but 30 minutes. And I'm kind of lucky that we already had this topic. So Lily talked a lot about empathy, and empathy for me really is at the core of this. There's like knowing how other people feel and also acting accordingly. Because everything else that I'm going to talk about, it kind of follows from that. If you have a huge amount of empathy, you will never be the sea lion. You will never be the person that's in a meeting and be like, oh, your idea is dumb. Because before you do that, you will think about like, if I'm in a meeting with 20 people and I'll just say like, oh, this is dumb to one person, they will feel horrified. They will never ever bring up an idea ever again in a meeting for the next like 6 months or for the next year. So you just won't do that. That is what it means to have empathy as a core value and as a core skill. So what are the other ways that this manifests? Is that, for instance, if I get a pull request on one of my repos, I will be like, hey, thank you. I will first post a cute bunny picture. If you don't see, this is beautiful Nala. And I'll be like, hey, thank you. Then I'll also say explicitly thank you. And this was like a small README change. But I know that, everyone who does a PR, like, it took them way longer than I probably think it did. And I'm really thankful for them for actually doing that. And also the other way around. If I open an issue in an open source project, the first thing that I'm going to write is, thank you for creating this project and thank you for maintaining it. Because like that is something that, as open source maintainers, we don't hear enough. I know that pain. And I'm really, because if I open an issue, it means that project was useful to me in some form or way. So that's why I gotta thank them. And I mean, you can, for instance, you can ask Clojure about like some of the things where sometimes we're just, one bad tweet away where somebody, shits all over our project that we created from just throwing it all away and saying, I don't need to spend my nights doing that. I could sleep, So keep that in mind. That is also something that comes with empathy for the people that maintain your open source. And the other thing that also Lily talked about, and of course pull request reviews are full talk by themselves, is pull request reviews are always about the code, never about the person. I don't say like, you made a mistake here. I say like, oh, we might have missed a bug here, or there might be a bug hiding there or something like that. It's not personal, it's about the code. We try together to make the code better. It's not about like who's cleverer or something. Most clever, whatever. The whole aspect for me of empathy, if you push it to the boundaries, for me that also means I think about the sea lion. I think about why is the sea lion like the sea lion is, Why are they so grumpy? Do they feel underappreciated? Or are they just so grumpy because they know they can't communicate their things and just want to be left alone? Did they have a bad day? I try to think about them. I try to be like, hey, how can I integrate that person? How can I maybe, find a better way to work with them? I'm not very good at it because if you know me, I'm very far away from the sea lion, but I still try to get into that. So, one of my favorite topics is motivational theory. Why should we care about motivational theory? Because it says like, why are we doing the things that we do? First theory, theory X and theory Y. This is you according to theory X. You could see a sleeping bunny there. So it's minus the cuteness, but more of the you're lazy, you're not very intelligent. It's the you're unwilling and unable to work. What follows from that is a certain management style. It's like, okay, we got to micromanage you, we got to observe you, and because you're also unable, we got to tell you how to do things. That is how theory X works. Theory Y, on the other hand, is more like, okay, we say people like, they want to work. They're like, yay, I want to work. And that's like, they are willing and able to do the work. That is theory Y. Another way to think about this is that theory X is like, oh, I don't want to work, keep the work away from me. And theory Y is like, yay, I want to work. How is this important to any of you? First off, it's always a scale, but you can think about it as like, you can look at your company, at your management. It's like, oh, are they more theory X or are they more theory Y? The other reason why it's important is like, which one of these two is more effective? And especially with like cognitive tasks such as programming, theory Y has been shown in studies all over the world to be more effective. There are exceptions for like mechanical tasks and sometimes a cultural thing where theory X can actually be more effective, but I don't have the time to get into all of these. And the other thing that I find really, really interesting about theory X and theory Y is how our view of people or humans affects our management style. And you can think about that for yourself. How do I treat people, and what does that say about my view of people or my manager's view of people? As I said, this is really lots of topics. So next, motivation theory, motivation hygiene theory. Motivation hygiene theory basically says, okay, there's motivating factors and there's demotivating factors. So far, so good. But the interesting thing is that it says that the demotivating factors are hygiene factors. So it's usually sort of an absence of a factor. So what might be demotivating for me? Might be demotivating if I'm totally underpaid, If I find out everyone else in the company makes 5 times that I make, I will be very demotivated. And motivation hygiene theory says that, like, no matter what the motivating factors are, I love my team and whatnot, if I have one of these hygiene factors gone bad, all of the others don't matter. So as a concrete example, for instance, you work somewhere, you have the greatest team, you help build the team, it's all great, you love everyone, it's an interesting job, but you find out that sort of the main company is totally sexist, and you're not okay with that. And then, you will be demotivated into a point, where it's like, I don't want to work here anymore. I actually love my job, but I can't represent this. I don't want to be here. And then you quit. Or like your company gets taken over by some evil VC overlord who fires everyone around you. Your job is still great. You're still getting paid a lot. The mission is still cool. But like everybody else, was just, kicked out of the door. That will be very, very bad. And none of the other motivational theories that I know help explain this phenomenon of somebody comes in and just destroys everything as good as motivation hygiene theory, which is why it's very important to me. However, now my favorite motivational theory, which is Daniel Pink, Drive. This is actually in the slides. This is a link to a YouTube RSA Animate, which I watch once a year, because I find it very interesting. Daniel Pink is a journalist who writes books, but I think he actually studied economy. And he looked at the social and the psychological science. It was like, what actually makes people perform better? And in standard economics, what we always think it is like, hey, we got to pay people more, and then they will perform better. That's economics, more money, more output. Great. It turns out that's not at all how it works. And those were studies like conducted by the US Federal Bank or something, so not some Marxist heaven, but like, the really peak of capitalism. So they found out that actually if you pay people more in performance, their performance might nosedive. And it's like, that is so strange. Why is that? And what are the actual motivating factors? And they found out that, for normal motivation, you just got to sort of be paid enough. You got to be paid more than average. I'm not talking about like what makes you choose a job, but when you're in a job, what motivates you. If you're paid enough that you can like retain your lifestyle and more than average, you're generally happy on that. So, but what are the other motivating factors? First one, there's 3 of them, is autonomy. And that is basically theory Y. I want to be sort of the master of my work. I don't want to be micromanaged. I want to, I want to have an impact. I want to be able to do these things the way that I want. I want to maybe start working from home or something. Secondly, mastery. We like to get better at these things. If you remember Julia's keynote, why would I sit somewhere and, trace the lines of an eye and discover that there's an eyelid there, It's like, I want to get better at drawing, and maybe at that time I don't even see that, like, the drawing might pay me, But it's the joy of getting better at this. I think Malvina didn't start out, when she started sketching, like, oh, someday people might pay me for this. No, she was like, oh, this is fun. It's a good way for me to learn, and I like to get better at it. And now, you can book her to do sketchnoting. Hint, hint. And so some people also, they play guitar at home just to get better. And us, we're the same, When we do open source, part of it is, I want to get better, I want to know the Erlang VM, not the JVM better, but I also want to know the JVM better, but that's a too long story. But like the garbage collection algorithms really fascinate me. You can ask me about it later. Yeah, so that is mastery. And the last one is purpose. So it's really rad to see, but this is the website of the Green Web Foundation that Chris was talking about. Was it today or yesterday? I forgot. Chris was talking about, but that's a mission I want to get behind. That's, something, okay, I want to do something against climate change. And then that is super important for me. That's something I like to get up every day to do and kind of like do. That's a purpose I want to be, yeah, that's something I want to do. Or on the other hand, why are people taking all their free time to organize this amazing conference? Why do Arne, Martin, and Ola and all the other people, why do they get up and like do all this, non-paid work? Because they want to give us, the community, this conference that we can enjoy, where we can exchange ideas and where we can give talks. That's why they're doing it. They're not doing it for a monetary gain or something. That is why they're doing that. And that's very important. And it's, it also describes a phenomenon that economists could never really describe, which is, for instance, why is there Wikipedia? People just like to share the knowledge. They like to get better at sharing knowledge, and they like to give the knowledge to everyone. Open source. Why am I spending my weekends writing something? It's like, oh, I want people to have like functioning code coverage. I want people to be better at benchmarking. So I'm doing these things. And on the other hand, I never want to work for the military or advertisement companies. Like, I don't want to wake up every day and be like, oh, cool, like, I made people see better ads. Yay, I love ads. That's not me. So this is autonomy, mastery, purpose. How does this help you? It helps you identify your own motivation. So I was recently interviewing, and I looked at every job and was like, okay, autonomy, mastery, purpose. Do I want to work here? That really helps me. But it also helps me see, the motivation of my peers, or when I interview someone, it's also like, hey, will this person be happy here? What is their motivation to work here? Anyhow, another thing that's very important is communication, not just being motivated, but being able to communicate very well. And I will present one theory to you, which is media synchronicity theory, which is basically they took it and looked at like, okay, what is very effective communication? What does a very effective communication process look like, and what kind of media do we use? And they came up with a 2-step process. First step, conveyance. And conveyance, before we want to make a decision or a meeting or something, we want to send the information out to everyone so that they can process them at their own time. This is then, an email, an agenda, something, maybe a wiki page or something that everybody can see in their own time and read it. And also, show it to other people, invite other people. It's very important that it's reproducible and rehearsable, it is called in this theory. And that's very good because maybe somebody already knows the topic, finishes it in 5 minutes. Somebody else looks at it for 3 hours and references other stuff. And that is so that we all can form our own mental model before we go into the meeting, that we already have a good understanding of what's happening. Second step, convergence. We all get together, and that then in a synchronous manner. Before, it was asynchronous, but now synchronous. We all want to talk at the same time. There's some points where we don't agree, and there we need quick feedback cycles. We need to be able to exchange thoughts rather rapidly, and that's what convergence is for. And convergence then happens usually in video calls, or it happens in in-person meetings at best, because, and I think Lily was also talking about this, it's about media richness, When we talk about these hard points, it's better that we have tone of voice, maybe gestures, so that the danger that we misunderstand each other isn't as big. And so then we get there, we all talk about what we understood or what we want to do, and then, after discussing it appropriately, we hopefully leave with the same image of what we are supposed to do in the end. So how does this help you directly? I propose that whenever you call a meeting, you have an agenda, and that agenda is editable by everyone. So everyone can already add their questions and their thoughts so that people can already process them before the meeting. You have different types of people. Some are okay with being confronted with new stuff right on the meeting, and some people, want to process it themselves and, really formulate an elaborate answer. And the cool thing about this is that sometimes we don't even need a meeting anymore. Sometimes it's just like, oh yeah, we all agree. Okay, meeting canceled. Good job. And then, of course, the meeting in person or video call so that you can all, exchange the ideas and go there. Another interesting application that there is for this is pull request reviews. If you worked on software for any time, or even shortly, you probably have sometimes witnessed this pull request that just would not close, First review round, second review round, and still no agreement. Then, it's this pull request ping pong between reviewer and reviewee that always has like a 4-hour delay. So the pull request is open for a week or something, and it's really annoying, and nobody loves it. Everybody hates it. What I propose after the second review round, or even for the second review round, is to do a pairing review. You sadly can't see that, but that is me, myself, and my friend Jason at the wonderful Eurocamp conference that this conference is also kind of modeled after. And we were doing that. We were doing a pairing review, which means is I first reviewed the pull request, and then we went through my comments together, and we were discussing them together, and we were trying to find solutions right there. And sometimes then, these exchanges that otherwise would have taken days, we did them in 2 minutes, And sometimes then these pull requests that take so long, we can usually close them within 30 minutes or something. And that is just great. So, pull requests and stuff is also something, sometimes you want to, convince people of your opinion. And so let's say I was now introduced as the Elixir person, and now I'm a bit afraid, but let's say I want to convince you of doing Elixir, any one of you. And how much do you think that I should talk and the person that I want to convince should talk? Like in percent, just shout numbers at me. How much should I talk? 20% of the time? Do we have any other numbers? 40, 50. You guys, of course, right. That's exactly 20%. So this is I don't have a scientific source for this. This is something that I learned from a trainer in university or a coach in university. But it makes sense, Convincing people of something, or finding a solution for something, it's not about you, We often think, we just got to shoot all the facts like actor model, We just got to shoot all of the people. And that's not actually how it works. What is actually important is listening to the other person. What are their fears? Why would they not want to do that? What are their objections? What are their wishes? What do they want from a new technology? For instance, we got to listen to that person, and then we can provide them with the arguments best suited for them. That's how it works best. And so I just want to reinforce that point. It's about listening. So recently I've been interviewing also for lots of CTO and engineering manager positions, and when I did that, I realized hey, of all the great changes that we did at my last company, none of them was my idea. Am I just, a fraud? Am I just, imposter syndrome kicking in full force? I'm hey, am I actually good at this? Everyone told me I'm good at this, but am I really? I never had one of these super great ideas. But then I realized that my strength wasn't necessarily those ideas, but creating the environment where people brought up these ideas from everyone, and then incorporating them, facilitating the process, running the meetings so that everybody gets heard and gets their opinion in, and then we come out with these final things as a product of everyone, I don't need to be smarter than every one of 15 people. I can't be. I would be better if it was. There's this, if I did my hiring right, there's this diverse group of people with diverse experiences that are very, very good at things. I need to leverage that. I need to create processes to leverage that. And that sort of like, helped me get over that. And so far, no one has said, like, you're not good enough, so that's fine. So a crucial part of that is also both giving feedback and inviting feedback, because without feedback, like my favorite is retrospectives. I love feedback. We can't get much anything done, basically. But how do you give feedback? And we also touched on this. I think again, it was Lily that said, like if you just do it in front of everyone, like system one kicks in and you just like defend. If you'd be like, hey, this is a very bad idea, like, oh, or like I really hated how you behaved yourself. It's like, oh, defend, and then they put up this wall and nothing happens. So feedback, especially like negative feedback, is best given in private. It's best like to, on a timely manner, take the person in a one-on-one situation and be like, hey, you know what, like this situation. And then it's best to have a concrete situation, not like you always do this, this concrete time that happened. And then try to describe it as objectively as possible. So that's like no valuation or something, which is very, very hard to do, and I don't have the time to talk about how to do it, but it's very hard. And then you describe the impact. You don't say like this thing, but you said, oh, and this made me really, scared to, continue talking about this or to voice my opinion again. Like this is like the impact on you, and then sort of like also formulate a wish, the next time I wish you would just, let me finish my argument until I'm done, and then you can, interrupt me or something, not interrupt, but then you can give your feedback on it, or you can talk about it. And when I mentioned that, people often say that that is basically nonviolent communication, and I read up a bit about it, and yeah, that's true, it's nonviolent communication, but it's not sort of the thing that I know the most. So after all of these, and I hope I managed to not speak too fast, what's the takeaway of all of this? First, soft skills matter. I hope that like the sort of 10 people in the beginning that said that hard skills are more important are now at least a bit more on the, okay, maybe soft skills are more important side. And I was like, it's really cool to see that like both at the Ruby user group and the Elixir user group where like practice this talk, like most people were like, yay for soft skills. And that makes me wonder, why are there still all these conferences? Like if we all agree on this and you're all not just biased by me, why is there still like so many conferences where there's no talks about people or social skills? Like I tried to get this talk accepted for 2 or 3 years. This is the first conference that ever accepted it, which I'm very, very grateful for. But like, why is that? I think it's a very important topic. And like, as you can hopefully see, I'm very passionate about it. Second one is empathy at the core of everything. Try to think about what the other people around you feel and what it's like for them, and try to act accordingly, which is hard, but it's a very valuable thing to develop and use. Motivational theories help you not only understand yourself better. Like before I learned about Dan Pink Drive, I was always very fuzzy about like what motivates me, but I don't know if it's just me, but Dan Pink Drive, the autonomy, mastery, purpose, that really fits kind of like a glove into like what motivates me after, the salary that is good enough for me. Communication is, what we do every day, and if we like improve our communication processes and how we actually communicate and talk to each other, it can make our work life and the work life of everyone else so much better. And I know that all of this might seem a bit overwhelming right now, so how do we get there? How do we learn all of this? And it's through reflection. You need to reflect on what not only you do, but what other people do. Like, what did I do? How did that make the other person feel? How can I do better next time? As one step. But like one thing that was very, very good for me is like, how did another person interact with me? How did that make me feel? Was that good or was that bad? And then sometimes I find behaviors like my former boss that was like, hey, like we had a disagreement about something, and he was like, and I was like, okay, let's do it your way. And he was like, no, Toby. I want to understand why you feel the other way, why you want to do it the other way. I want to understand it. And then we talked for 30 more minutes, and we came up with a better solution together. And it was like that, persistence on something like, I want to understand your opinion before we decide anything. That was something that was really, oh, that is really cool. That made me feel really valued. So that is something that I want to take, going forward. That's how I want to be. And on the other hand, I always say there's nothing so good as a bad example. There's so many examples of especially leaders behaving where I'm like, I never want to be that person. That is just burnt into my mind, and sometimes I'm paranoid about being that person. Then I apologize for things that were not bad at all, but I'm the kind of person I'd rather apologize 10 times or 100 times than not apologize one time. So yeah, try to reflect on that with everyone around, and try to take the experience of your peers in, and you will get better at these things. And thank you. Good Bunny Czech.